I'm Melissa, pushing 48, and if you told me 5 years back I'd be running my own gig, I'd have laughed in your face. Life in the city is tough, tougher when you're single and hustling in a pet store, barely making rent. But here I am, owner of Urban Paws, a pet care agency born out of necessity when the world turned upside down thanks to a pandemic. My days are a blur of barking dogs, purring cats, and the occasional parrot telling me off. But it's mine, every bit of it, from the chewed-up leashes to the last-minute pet-sitting requests. Melissa, the Johnson's terrier, got into the trash again. It's like the 5th time this month. Liz, my right-hand woman and part-time fire extinguisher, announced as she stormed into my makeshift office, a broom in one hand and her phone in the other. Tell them it's time for some crate training. And bill M for the extra cleanup. I shot back without looking up from my laptop. The screen was a battlefield of schedules, bookings, and the never-ending list of tasks that came with running a small business. It was just another Tuesday, or so I thought, bustling with the usual chaos of barks and meows, when Jack strolled in. He had this big, scruffy dog with him, a Great Dane with eyes as kind as his owner's. Hey, I'm Jack. God told you're the best in town for keeping critters happy when their humans are away. Is it true? He asked, his voice smooth but edged with a hint of playfulness. I couldn't help but smile, brushing a stray hair from my face. I guess you'll have to find out for yourself, won't you? What's the big guy's name? Thor. After the god of thunder, though the only thing he's striking is fear into the heart of my vacuum cleaner. Jack quipped, and I laughed, genuinely. It was the first time in a long time that a client's visit felt more like a casual chat between friends. Over the next few weeks, Jack became more than just a client. He'd pop in not just to drop off Thor, but to bring us coffee, to chat, and sometimes, I suspected, just to see me. You know, Melissa, I think Thor's got a better social life than I do now, thanks to you, he said one day, leaning casually against the counter. Maybe you need to get out more, or maybe Thor's just more charming than you. I teased back, enjoying the easy banter that had developed between us. Jack's visits became the highlight of my day, a pleasant distraction from the endless responsibilities of running a business. It wasn't long before he asked me out, catching me completely off guard. Melissa, would you, I don't know, like to grab dinner with me sometime? Not as Thor's human, but just as, well, you and me? I remember blinking at him, surprised, my heart racing for reasons I couldn't quite understand. Are you asking me out on a date, Jack? Yeah, I guess I am. What do you say? It was all so unexpected. My life had been about work, about surviving and making it on my own. Yet, here was Jack, looking at me with those hopeful eyes, and all I could think was, why not? Sure, why not? Let's do dinner. That dinner was the first of many, the beginning of something neither of us fully understood but were eager to explore. Jack was different from anyone I'd ever known. He was kind, sure, but there was a toughness to him, a resilience that resonated with my own. We talked about everything and nothing, from our dreams to our pasts, and everything in between. A year later, when Jack asked me to marry him, it didn't come as a shock. It felt right, like the next step in our journey together. I said yes without hesitation, excited for what the future held for us. I never thought I'd find someone like you, Melissa. You've changed my life in the best possible way, Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. And you've given me a reason to believe in love again, Jack. I can't wait to see where this adventure takes us, I replied, my heart full. Our engagement was a testament to the unexpected twists life can throw at you. From the moment Jack and Thor walked into my life, everything changed. I found love, companionship, and a sense of belonging I hadn't realized I was missing. Jack's parents, an amazingly kind and sweet married couple, accepted me as their own daughter. We sometimes came to visit them. I helped Jack's mother set the table, while Jack and his father discussed another basketball game. It was real, you know? Life's funny, you know? One day you're floating on cloud 9, everything's peachy, and then boom, it all starts to crumble. That's exactly what happened with Jack and me. It all started so subtle, I barely noticed. But let me backtrack a bit and give you the full picture. I was knee-deep in paperwork at the agency when Jack started mentioning he felt off. At first, it was just the odd sniffle here and there, nothing to write home about. But then, it escalated. Colds, backaches, you name it. I figured we all hit a rough patch health-wise, but Jack, he took it to another level. One evening, I came home later than usual, the pet agency was buzzing, and I was juggling a million things at once. Jack was sprawled on the couch, looking miserable. "Babe, I'm feeling crappy again," he groaned as I dropped my keys on the counter. I sighed, hanging up my coat. "You've been saying that a lot. Maybe it's time to see a doctor? Or we could try switching up our diet, get you on some vitamins?" Jack's response was a scoff. "Oh, great, Melissa. That's just great. You think a few veggies and some pills are gonna fix everything? You just don't get it, do you?" I was taken aback. "Jack, I'm just trying to help. I'm no doctor, but sitting around moping isn't going to do much. You've gotta at least try." That set him off. "Try? You think I'm not trying? You have no idea what it's like. You're out all day, busy with your precious agency and those animals. When do you ever stop to think about me, huh?" His words stung. I was busting my ass, trying to keep our life together, keep the business running, and here he was, accusing me of not caring. "Jack, that's not fair. I'm working to support us, to build something. And I do worry about you, all the damn time." But talking to Jack was like talking to a brick wall. He just wouldn't budge. "Whatever, Melissa. Just leave me alone." So, I did. I retreated to our bedroom, feeling a mix of anger and helplessness. This wasn't the man I married. Where did that caring, understanding guy go? It felt like I was living with a stranger. The next few weeks were more of the same. Jack's health complaints became a daily soundtrack, and any suggestion I made was shot down. He was convinced that the world was against him, and I was the conductor. Our arguments became more frequent, more heated. It felt like we were speaking different languages. I suggested exercise, he accused me of being insensitive. I mentioned healthy eating, and he'd snap about me not understanding his pain. Frustrated with our nowhere conversations, I finally put my foot down. "Look, Jack, this isn't working. You need to see a doctor, get some real advice. Not just guesswork and internet crap." Jack was resistant, but exhausted. "Fine, Melissa. I'm tired, okay? Maybe it is just needing rest. But I'll go, for your peace of mind." So, 2 weeks later, I dragged him to the clinic, despite his reluctance. He went through all the checks, an MRI, the whole 9 yards. When we sat across from the doctor, awaiting the verdict, I held my breath. The doctor's words were a punch in the gut, but not the kind I expected. "There's nothing seriously wrong. A slight inflammation of a nerve, but with proper care and some physical therapy, you should be fine. You can work." I sighed, a mix of relief and frustration. "See, Jack? It's not as bad as you thought. We can work on this, get you back on your feet." But Jack, he wasn't having any of it. His face twisted in anger. "So, that's it, huh? You're happy now? You think I'm faking it? You just want me out of the house, working myself to death. You don't care about me, Melissa. You're heartless. All you care about is your damn money and business." I was floored. Here I was, trying to find a solution, and he was accusing me of the worst. "Jack, that's not fair. I'm trying to help. I want you healthy, not this. I care about us." But he wouldn't listen, wrapped up in his own narrative of neglect and accusations. And there I was, standing at a crossroads, wondering how love had turned into a battleground of wills. Life at home had become a marathon, one I hadn't signed up for, but was running every day. Work at the agency kept me chained till late, juggling clients and pet emergencies like a circus act. By the time I got home, the real work began. Jack's dog, Thor, needed walking, a task Jack conveniently forgot existed. So, I'd trudge through the neighborhood, leash in hand, trying to decompress from the day. Once back, the kitchen called my name. Cooking wasn't just about feeding us, it was my moment of zen. But with Jack planted on the couch, my zen often turned into a simmering pot of resentment. The apartment didn't clean itself either. While I scrubbed and sorted, Jack became part of the furniture, an immovable object glued to whatever screen caught his fancy. One night, as I balanced cleaning up after dinner with a mental list of tasks for the next day, I snapped. Jack, can you at least help out with the dishes? Or anything, really? My voice, usually calm, carried a sharp edge. He glanced up, the glow from the TV painting shadows on his face. Melissa, you know this stuff is your domain. I'm just not cut out for it. Cut out for it? It's dishes, Jack, not rocket science. We both live here. We should both contribute. The words tumbled out, fueled by exhaustion and frustration. He shrugged, a gesture that fanned the flames. That's a woman's job, Mel. My mom never had my dad lift a finger around the house. I stared at him, incredulous. The argument spiraled into familiar territory, me advocating for partnership, him retreating into outdated ideals. It was a merry-go-round of frustration, going nowhere. A month into this domestic deadlock, Jack dropped a bombshell. I'm not feeling well, Mel. Think I need to quit my job. Find something remote. His declaration hung between us, another layer of tension. Trying to keep the peace, I offered a solution. Why don't you work with me at the agency? There's plenty you can do from home. Handling applications, overseeing the staff remotely, managing payments. It could be good for you. His reaction was like I'd suggested he jump off a bridge. Feel sorry for me? Is that it? You think offering me a job is going to fix things? His voice was a mix of anger and something else, disappointment, maybe. No, Jack, I'm trying to help. We need 2 incomes, and this way, you can work at your own pace. It's not about pity, it's about practicality. My attempt at reason fell on deaf ears. By the time we hit what I'd call the breaking point, things between Jack and me were frostier than a freezer. I'm not one for drama, but living with Jack had become like walking on eggshells, covered in barbed wire. One day, I'm elbow-deep in work, scheduling appointments, and dealing with a no-show employee, when Jack calls me. He's at home, as usual, and his voice is dripping with that tone, you know, the one that says he's about to make your day even longer. Melissa, we're out of those organic chips I like. And grab some of that craft beer on your way back, would ya? He says, like he's doing me a favor by giving me errands. I press the phone against my ear, trying not to let the irritation seep into my voice. Jack, I'm swamped. Can't it wait? Or maybe you could pick them up. Silence. Then, you know I'm not feeling great, Melissa. Why do you always have to make things so difficult? Difficult, right. Because asking him to get off the couch is akin to asking him to climb Everest. I bite back a snarky retort and agree, because it's easier than arguing. By the time I get home, arms laden with groceries, including his precious chips and beer, the house looks like a cyclone hit it. Dishes piled up, laundry spilling out of the basket, Thor rushing for a walk, and there's Jack, planted on the couch, glued to the TV. I lose it. Jack, seriously? You couldn't have done some of this while I was out? He turns, eyes narrow. What's your problem, Melissa? I told you, I'm not feeling well. I'm standing there, groceries still in my hands, and I just start laughing. It's that, or cry. Not feeling well? Jack, the doctor said you're fine. This is just laziness. He stands up then, face red. You don't believe me? You think I'm lying about my pain? It's not about believing you, Jack. It's about trying, doing something. Anything. I'm practically pleading now, but he's having none of it. I didn't tell Jack's parents anything, for fear of upsetting them. We visited them occasionally, and they came to us with return visits. The issue of Jack's health was never raised during our conversations. It was surprising, because he loved to tell everyone about his well-being. But I didn't have time to think about it. Months dragged on, each day blending into the next with a sameness that was suffocating. Jack was still home, glued to the couch under the guise of looking for remote work. Health excuses became his shield against any form of employment outside the house. It was like living with a ghost who occasionally raided the fridge or flicked through channels. Then, out of the blue, he comes up with this grand plan. "Babe, Mom's birthday's coming up. I booked a table at Chez Fancy. You'll cover it, right?" His nonchalance about dropping a bomb like that was astounding. I stared at him, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief boiling inside. "Cover it? Jack, are you out of your mind? You've not lifted a finger to contribute, and now you want me to shell out for an expensive dinner?" He looked taken aback, as if the thought that I would object was alien to him. "Come on, Melissa. It's for my mom. Don't you want to help make it special?" That was the last straw. Making it special doesn't mean throwing money at it, especially money you didn't earn. If you want to do something for your mom, how about you actually put in some effort? Cook her dinner. Invite her over. Show her you care without spending money we don't have. To my surprise, he caved. All right. I'll cook. It'll be great, you'll see." Suddenly, the affectionate and attentive Jack I remembered from our early days made a brief reappearance. It was enough to kindle a flicker of hope in me. Maybe this was the turning point. Maybe things could get back to how they were. But life has a way of dashing hopes with brutal efficiency. On the day of the big dinner, I was slammed by a nasty bug. Head pounding, legs aching, the works. I could barely stand up straight. Leaving work early, I dragged myself home, dreading the evening ahead. Walking through the door, I found Jack exactly where I left him that morning, planted on the couch. "Jack, I'm really not feeling well. How's dinner coming along?" He didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. "Oh, my back's acting up again. Can't stand, let alone cook. Maybe we can just do the restaurant thing?" I was floored. "You've got to be kidding. I'm barely standing here, Jack. And you want to go out? We can't afford that dinner." He had the gall to look annoyed. "Well, what do you want me to do, Melissa? Magic up a meal? You know how my back is. Maybe you could." The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. Jack was never going to cook that dinner. It was all just another one of his games, a deception dressed up in false promises. Standing there, feeling like my body was at war with itself, I told Jack about how sick I felt, hoping for a sliver of sympathy, maybe even a touch of care. But what I got was a cold shoulder. "If you're too sick to cook, then just stay home," he said, his voice void of any warmth. "I'll take my folks out to eat. Just give me the money for the restaurant." I was floored. The audacity, the sheer lack of empathy, it left me speechless. Arguing was the last thing I had the energy for. So, I swallowed my pride along with some antipyretic, hoping it would quell the fever enough for me to stand in the kitchen without passing out. I started on the main course, my movements sluggish, every stir of the pot a monumental effort. To make things easier, or so I thought, I ordered some snacks from the cafe down the street. But as I reached into the oven to pull out the casserole, a wave of dizziness hit me. I stumbled, catching myself on the edge of the counter, just in time. That's when Jack decided to kick me while I was down. "You can't even handle this, can you? I'm sick of it." His words were a punch to the gut, stripping away any pretense of concern he might have feigned earlier. I was doing my best, sick as a dog, trying to hold everything together, and here he was, berating me for not living up to some impossible standard. I swayed again, barely able to stand on my feet. And then the kitchen door slammed open with a force that made us both jump. It was Jack's parents. At that moment, everything changed. Their faces were a mix of shock and anger, immediately rushing over to me as I nearly collapsed. His mom, her eyes wide with worry, helped me to the couch, her glance flitting between me and Jack with disbelief. "Why on earth didn't you cancel dinner, Jack? Forcing Melissa to cook when she's this sick?" she exclaimed, her voice a mixture of anger and concern. Hearing her, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. The frustration, the loneliness, the sheer exhaustion of it all came pouring out. "We'd been on thin ice for ages," I sobbed, telling her about the years of taking care of Jack, his endless ailments, his refusal to work, and the sea of bills for gadgets and gizmos that just gathered dust. I showed her the receipts, evidence of our spiraling debt. She was stunned. "Why didn't you say anything sooner, dear? About his sickness, his job?" I wiped my eyes, looking down. "I didn't want to upset you. I hoped he'd change." She turned to Jack then, her hands gripping his shoulders like she could shake some sense into him. "Why, Jack? Why put Melissa through all this?" And then, she shared something I never knew. Jack had a history of faking illness to avoid responsibilities, a pattern stretching back to his school days. My heart sank. The realization hit me like a truck: my marriage was over. I couldn't tether my life to someone so unwilling to be a partner, so dependent on the sacrifices of others. His parents didn't spare him, their disappointment clear as day. "We've indulged you for too long," his dad said, voice hard with a finality that brooked no argument. "I can't do this anymore. I want a divorce," I declared, the words heavy but freeing. His mom nodded, her eyes sad but understanding. "I would do the same, dear." They then turned to Jack, their final verdict chilling. "Don't expect any more help from us. And forget about any inheritance if you don't turn your life around." Jack's reaction was desperate, a stark contrast to his usual apathy. He pleaded, begged even, but his mom just pushed him away. "You owe Melissa an apology, not us." But I was done. Done with the excuses, the lies, the endless cycle of hope and disappointment. It was time to move on, to rebuild from the ashes of what was supposed to be my happily ever after. Jack's pleas fell on deaf ears, my decision was made. It was time for a new beginning, one where I could find happiness and peace, free from the weight of carrying us both. After the dust of divorce settled, I threw myself into my work and the company of the animals I dedicated my life to. It was clear, the path ahead was mine alone to carve, and frankly, I relished the freedom. The end of my marriage, while a chapter one wouldn't choose to reread, taught me lessons I'd carry forever. It wasn't about regret, it was about growth. Jack, on his end, managed to snag himself a job, nothing fancy, but enough to keep him afloat in some modest digs. Last I heard, he's been playing the sympathy card hard, telling anyone who'd listen how I left him in his hour of need. But our mutual friends? They knew the score. They saw through his tales and, from what trickled back to me, his stories earned them more eye rolls than sympathies. The day he showed up at my office was a test I didn't know I was ready for until it happened. There he was, standing in the lobby with a bouquet of flowers that looked as out of place in his hands as sincerity in his apologies. I spotted him the moment I stepped out of my office, the sight bringing a mix of irritation and a weird sense of déjà vu. "What are you doing here, Jack?" I asked, not bothering to mask the edge in my voice. He shuffled, looking everywhere but at me. I wanted to say I'm sorry, Melissa. I've changed. I was hoping we could." "Stop." I cut him off, holding up a hand. "Just stop, Jack. You haven't changed. You're just sorry you're on your own now." He tried to interject, the flowers extended towards me like a peace offering. But I was done accepting anything from him. "Save it, Jack. I'm not the person you left behind anymore. I've moved on. It's time you did the same." "But Melissa." "No. This is my place of work, my sanctuary. You don't get to waltz in here with a bouquet and expect everything to be all right." I stepped closer, my voice firm. "You need to leave, now." He looked like he might argue, but something in my stance must have told him it would be futile. With a final, lingering look, he turned and left, the door closing quietly behind him. Watching him go, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was confirmation, a sign that the life I was building was mine and mine alone, free from the shadows of a past that no longer had any hold on me.